Welcome, and thanks for joining us here on our channel, Vintage Noise.
Yeah, welcome everyone.
Today, we're going to be exploring really the birth of a legend. We're looking at the Porsche 356, specifically the early ones collectors call the Pre-A, from about 1951 through 55.
Right, this is that pivotal time. It's where Porsche starts to become, well, Porsche, moving away from those, very direct Volkswagen origins.
And that Pre-A name, it signifies something important, doesn't it?
It really does. It tells you these are the cars built before the first major revision, the 356A. It's the original idea, the blueprint. And the focus back then, functional improvement, step by step, not just changing the chrome bits every year.
They really hit the ground running, didn't they? I mean, the car wasn't just designed, it was proven almost immediately.
Oh, instantly. Think about this. The very first 356 gets its road certification in Austria, June 8th, 1948. And almost the next day, it goes racing in Innsbruck and wins its class. Wow. Yeah, right out of the gate. That set the tone. It showed Ferdinand Porsche's philosophy worked. Clever engineering, good aerodynamics, lightweight. That mattered more than just sheer engine size. Okay, so let's talk about the first big shift. Before the Pre-A really solidifies, there's this move from, well, almost a workshop setup to actual production.
That's the crucial first step, the Gmünd era versus Zuffenhausen. Those initial cars, built in Grimmen, Austria, they were something else. Hand-formed aluminum bodies.
Basically hand-built.
Completely. In what was, I believe, an old sawmill. It was incredibly labor-intensive, almost like prototypes escaping into the wild. It's got that, romantic, scrappy origin story.
Like you can't really scale that kind of production. So the move was necessary. Exactly. They needed a proper facility and, maybe more importantly, a different approach to materials for volume. So in 1950, production moves to Zuffenhausen in Germany.
And this is where the steel bodies come in.
Correct. They contracted with Reuter Karossierwerk Reuter to build the bodies. And crucially, they switch from aluminum to steel and adopt that monocoque, that unibody construction.
Now, we mentioned monocoque or unibody a lot when talking about classic cars. For listeners maybe newer to this, why was that decision so fundamental for the 356?
It was everything for the car's feel. It wasn't just about steel being perhaps easier to work with in volume than aluminum back then. With a monocoque, the body is the frame.
Right, it's all integrated.
The whole shell provides the structural rigidity, takes the suspension loads. That's what gives the 356 that incredibly tight, responsive handling it's famous for.
It also explains why rust is such a killer for these cars, unfortunately.
Precisely. There's no separate frame to repair or replace easily. The body's integrity is the car's integrity. A fundamental design choice with long-term consequences for preservation.
Okay, so the structure changes, but the 1300 and the name we're focusing on, that points to the engine. This marks Porsche starting to step away from the original VW-based units, right?
It's the first significant step, yes. Announced in 1951, the 1.3-liter Type 506 engine. Before that, the earliest cars used the 1.1-liter Type 369.
Which put out, what was it, 40 horsepower?
Yeah, 40 bhp. And about 51 pound-feet of torque. Which, sounds tiny today, but remember how light these cars were? Aerodynamics helped a lot.
So the 1.3-liter, the Type 506, how much of an improvement was it really? Was it a totally new engine?
Not totally new, no. And that's key to understanding early Porsche. Clever, incremental improvements. They kept the basic air-cooled flat-four architecture, but they made meaningful changes.
Like what specifically?
Well, power went up to 44 horsepower, still at a pretty low 4,200 RPM. But torque, importantly, increased to 60 pound-feet, and it peaked lower down at 2,800 RPM.
That lower torque peak is what you feel driving around town, makes it more flexible.
Exactly. It makes the car feel punchier, more responsive, without having to rev it hard. Technically, they got there with a larger bore, using these nice finned aluminum cylinders with chromed liners from Mali.
Advanced stuff for the time.
Definitely. But they also kept the compression ratio relatively low. That was smart because it meant the engine was happy running on the regular pump gas available then. Made it a practical performance car for everyday people, not just racers needing special fuel.
And even with the original 1.1-liter, the performance was decent for the era, wasn't it? 0 to 60 in under 14 seconds, nearly 100 mile/hour top speed.
Yeah, which again highlights how effective the lightweight design and the aerodynamics were. The chassis and the shape are doing a lot of the work, not just raw power.
That combination of handling, build quality, and decent performance started getting noticed, especially after successes like the Le Mans class win in '51. Absolutely. And that success created a new problem, demand. Suddenly, Reuter, who was building the bodies, was swamped. They couldn't keep up.
Not entirely, especially with orders for both the coupes and the cabriolets picking up. Porsche needed more capacity, particularly for the more complex cabriolet bodies.
So where did they turn?
They turned to another coach builder, Glaser Carrosserie. They were an established, high-quality firm, originally from Dresden. They were contracted specifically to help with cabriolet production, mainly around 1951-52, when Reuter was really stretched thin.
So finding a glazer-bodied cabriolet from that period is a sign of that early growth spurt.
Exactly. It's a little piece of the history showing how quickly things were moving. Glaser was known for quality, not mass production, so it fit the Porsche image. Reuter did eventually take back all the cabriolet production by 54, but those Glaser cars are interesting markers for collectors.
Okay, so manufacturing is shifting, the engine's evolving. What about spotting these Pre-A cars visually? You mentioned the Pre-A designation ends around 1955. Is there one key visual clue?
Oh yeah, the dead giveaway is the windshield. It's the defining feature for identifying a Pre-A.
How'd it change?
It went through two phases within the Pre-A period. The very earliest cars, from 48 up to about mid-52, had the split windshield. Two separate flat pieces of glass with a distinct vertical bar down the middle.
Classic early look. And
Then, starting with the 52 model year, running through the end of the Pre-A run in 55, they switched to the bent windshield. This was a single piece of glass, which was an improvement for visibility.
But it wasn't fully curved yet.
Exactly. It still had a noticeable crease or bend running right down the center. That V-shaped bend is the key identifier for the later Pre-A cars, distinguishing them from the smooth, curved windshield that came with the 356A.
And that 52 model year change, it brought more than just the bent windshield, didn't it? A few more refinements.
Yeah, that was a significant update. Along with the new windshield, they added the first little bits of exterior Brightwork slim aluminum trim around the front and rear glass. Just simple seals and trim, but it was the start of adding small aesthetic touches. Functional, but a touch nicer.
That philosophy of functional improvement carry over inside too, right? What changed in the cockpit during the Pre-A years?
Subtle things, mostly, but aimed at usability. The instruments changed from the original white-on-black dials to green-on-black, apparently easier on the eyes.
Okay.
And little details, like the wooden door top caps, usually beechwood, were replaced with caps painted in the car's body color. Made it look a bit more integrated, I suppose.
Any nods to passenger comfort? These were still pretty Spartan cars.
Well, they did add a passenger sun visor, a small luxury. And importantly for driving, they fitted a conventional turn signal stalk on the steering column instead of a switch on the dashboard. Much more intuitive.
Makes sense. Any clever practical touches?
Yeah, a couple. They used fiberboard for the glove box liner instead of steel, tiny weight saving, maybe cheaper too. And the rear seats, which were proper little seats, not just pads, were designed so you could fold the backrest down flat.
Ah, creating a bigger luggage platform. Smart for a touring car.
Exactly. Increase the practicality quite a bit for longer trips. Small things, but they add up. Now, we can't talk about the early 356 without mentioning its impact in America. And one name always comes up. Max Hoffman. Max Hoffman. Yeah, he was the sole U.S. importer back then, and he had a huge influence. He wasn't just selling the cars. He was feeding back crucial market intelligence to Zuffenhausen.
He knew what American buyers wanted, or at least thought he did.
He definitely had strong opinions. For instance, he was the one who requested the bumpers be repositioned in mid-1952. The original placement was maybe a bit too delicate looking for American tastes, or perhaps for parking norms.
And his most famous intervention led to arguably the most iconic 306 variant of all.
The Speedster. Absolutely Hoffman's idea. He saw a niche in the booming American sports car market, especially in places like California. He pushed Porsche for a cheaper, simpler, stripped-down roadster.
Minimal weather gear, cut-down windshield, pure sports car.
Right. Basic bucket seats, side curtains instead of roll-up windows. It was aimed squarely at weekend racers and enthusiasts who wanted raw performance and style without the cost or luxuries of the cabriolet. And boy, did he nail that one. The Speedster became an icon.
He even tried his hand at naming the cars, which didn't go quite as smoothly.
Yes, the naming saga. Towards the end of the Pre-A period in 1955, Hoffman persuaded Porsche to badge the cars sold in the U.S. as the Continental. He thought it sounded more substantial, more suited to the American market than just 356.
But there's already a rather famous Continental being built in America.
Indeed. Ford Motor Company, specifically Lincoln, took exception to this, given their Lincoln Continental. Lawyers got involved.
So the Porsche Continental name didn't last long.
1 year only, 1955, which makes those 55 Pre-A modders with the Continental script quite rare and collectible today. After the legal challenge, the replacement name for that trim level in 56 was, briefly, the European.
It's funny how a naming dispute created a collector's item. But whatever the badge said, these early Porsches were building a global reputation.
Absolutely, based on that core formula, solid design, reliability, great handling, and that sporting character. It really cemented Porsche's image early on. So the Pre-A laid the groundwork. It's the foundation upon which the whole 356 dynasty was built.
Perfect way to put it. And the 356 line had a good long run after the Pre-A, always sticking to the evolutionary approach.
Maybe quickly sketch out what came next, just to put the Pre in context.
Sure. After the Pre-A finish in late 55, you get the 356A. That's the one with the proper curved windshield, no center crease. And importantly, the A offered the option of the complex but potent four-cam Carrera engine. Big performance jump if you tick that box.
Then came the B.
Then the 356B, which arrived around 59. That saw the first major visual redesign, the T5 body, and later the T6. Headlights raised, bumpers raised, and chunkier. A noticeable change.
And finally, the C, the 356C, the last iteration from 63 to 65. The big news there was adopting disc brakes on all four wheels. A major functional upgrade, bringing the braking performance up to match the handling.
It's pretty incredible how successful they were, sticking with that same basic monocoque design throughout all those years. The growth was huge. The numbers really tell the story. By the end of production in 1965, they'd built something like 76,000, total 356s. And consider this. In 1964 alone, they had orders for over 10,000 cars, from those hand-built beginnings in Guand.
To taking orders for 10,000 cars in a year. It's a massive scale-up, all built on the reputation forged by those early cars.
And even when the successor arrived, the car that became the 911, Porsche didn't completely abandon the 356's engine philosophy, did they?
No, that was a very smart move. The new car, originally the 901, then the 911, had a sophisticated flat-six engine. It was more powerful, yes, but also more complex and expensive.
Leaving a gap in the lineup.
Exactly. So Porsche introduced the 912 alongside the 911. The 912 used the same body as the 911, but crucially, it was powered by an evolution of the trusty four-cylinder pushrod engine from the 356C, the Type 616 engine.
So the 912 was effectively the bridge, carrying forward the spirit of the later 356s for customers who maybe weren't ready for the 911.
Precisely. It was marketed as the standard version of the 911. It provided a familiar, reliable, well-handling Porsche sports car at a lower price point. It kept those loyal 356 customers in the family while the 911 established itself. Very clever strategy.
So looking back at the Pre-A, the 1951 to 55 cars, what's the essential takeaway? What does this period represent?
It represents the crystallization of the Porsche ethos, that relentless focus on functional, evolutionary improvement rather than just changing styles for the sake of it. The Pre-A is Porsche figuring out how to build its vision at scale, sticking to core principles like the monocoque structure and efficient performance.
It's the purest, maybe the most direct expression of that original engineering vision.
I think so. And maybe a final thought for you to consider. Think about the contrast. It took Porsche 2 whole years, from 48, to build the first 50 cars. 50! Just 2 decades later, they're getting orders for over 10,000 cars in a single year.
That trajectory is staggering.
It really is. And the question it raises is, how did that initial, almost stubborn commitment to refining the core concept, starting right there with the Pre-A, allow this tiny company to grow so massively, yet keep that reputation for quality and performance intact? That foundation set the standard for everything Porsche did afterwards.
A standard built on engineering, evolution, and maybe a bit of racing success right at the start.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
That's the enduring legacy of the 356 Pre-A.
An incredible machine and a fascinating story. Well, thank you for exploring the Porsche 356 1300 Pre-A with us here on Vintage Noise.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
We hope you keep digging into the details that make these old cars so compelling. See you next time.